I didn't plan to stay that late at the shop. The fluorescent lights had that half-dead flicker, and the air smelled like metal filings and old coffee. I was halfway through wiping grease off my hands when the door chimed. It was almost 9. She stepped in like she didn't belong there, but didn't apologize for it either. A navy coat, hair tied back in that way people do when they don't care, but somehow still look composed. Her eyes scanned the shelves, the hanging tools, me. "Are you still open?" she asked. Her voice was steady, the kind that could make bad news sound tolerable. "Technically," I said, glancing at the clock. "Depends what you need." She hesitated. "My car won't start. The one across the street. I think it's the battery." I grabbed the jumper cables and followed her out. The street was quiet, a thin drizzle starting up. Her car was parked crooked near the curb, headlights dim, hood slightly ajar like it had given up mid-sigh. When I opened it, she stood close, too close, maybe, but not intentional. I could smell something faint, citrus and clean, underneath the damp air. I tried not to notice. We worked in silence for a while. She watched carefully, not like someone curious about the process, but like she was trying to memorize it, to prove she didn't need help next time. "What do you do when you're not saving strangers in parking lots?" she asked eventually. "Same thing," I said, "just with less rain." She smiled, small but real. I caught it only for a second before she looked away. The cables sparked faintly when I connected the clamps. She didn't flinch, but she folded her arms tighter across her chest. There was something in that. Restraint, maybe, or habit. When her engine turned over, she let out this tiny breath, almost a laugh, but quieter. "Guess I owe you one," she said. "Guess so." She didn't leave right away. She sat behind the wheel with the window half down, fingers tapping the steering wheel like she was waiting for something to happen. The rain started to come harder, slanting under the streetlight, and I stood there like an idiot, pretending to check the cables again. Finally, she said, "You should come by sometime. I manage the bookstore on Maple. If you ever, read." That caught me off guard. The way she said read, like she already knew the answer but wanted to test it. "I do," I said, which wasn't entirely true. "Then stop by," she said. "I'll owe you coffee." She pulled away before I could reply. The tail lights blurred red through the rain, then disappeared. I waited for the sound of the engine to fade before heading back inside. The shop felt emptier somehow, like she'd taken some air with her. That night, I sat in my small apartment, the window cracked open, listening to the rain hit the gutter. My hands still smelled faintly of metal and the citrus on her coat. I told myself it was nothing, just a moment, a spark, nothing more. But I couldn't shake the way she looked at me when the engine came alive. Not gratitude, not curiosity, something quieter, harder to name. And maybe I imagined it, but when she said, "You should come by," her voice had that slight hitch, like she didn't expect me to say yes. That was the part that stuck. Not the rain, not the car, not even her smile. Just the silence right before she spoke, and how it felt like the start of something I wasn't supposed to want. The next week, I stopped by the bookstore. I told myself it was just to return the jumper cables she'd left in her trunk, even though they were mine. The bell over the door gave a dull ring, and the smell hit me first. Old paper, coffee, and a faint hint of her perfume, the same one from that night. The place was quiet. A few people browsed. A man coughed near the magazines. She was behind the counter, glasses low on her nose, hair loose this time. It looked softer, less formal, like the day had worn her down in small ways. She didn't see me right away. When she did, she smiled, but it wasn't the easy one from before. This one was careful. "You actually read, huh?" she said. "Still working on that part," I said, holding up the cables. "Thought you might want these back." She looked at them, then at me, a faint crease forming between her brows. "Those were yours." "I know," I said. "Guess I just needed an excuse." Her eyes flickered, something like amusement, maybe guilt. "Well, you found one." She took the cables, set them under the counter. I noticed her hands, strong, capable, with small ink stains on the side of her thumb. Book dust clung to her sleeves. She smelled faintly of cinnamon and printer's ink. We talked, or tried to, mostly about nothing, the weather, the kind of people who dog-ear pages, the hum of the old espresso machine in the corner. I asked if the store was hers. She said, "In another life, maybe." I wanted to ask what that meant, but her tone made me stop. A silence settled between us. She broke it first. "You look tired." I shrugged. "Late nights at the shop." She nodded, eyes tracing something on the counter that wasn't there. I know the feeling. There was a weight behind it, the kind people carry when they don't sleep enough, or sleep too much trying not to think. I leaned on the counter, close enough to see the faint smudge of mascara under her eye. "Long day." She smiled, but her voice betrayed her. "They're all long days." The bell rang again. A customer came in, asked for something. She turned away, and that was that. I pretended to browse while she helped them. My eyes kept drifting back, to the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the way her laugh came out soft but never reached her eyes. When the customer left, she came over, wiping her hands on a cloth. "You always this persistent?" she asked lightly. "Only when it seems like someone's trying to get rid of me." That made her pause. Her gaze lingered a second too long. "You should be careful with words like that," she said quietly. "Why?" She didn't answer, just brushed a bit of dust from a stack of books and said, "Because some people might start believing them." Before I could reply, she turned to the backroom door, her hand resting on the frame. For a moment, she looked like she might say something else, something real. But she didn't. The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence that followed felt heavier than the sound itself. I left soon after. That night, I couldn't remember a single title from the shelves. Only the way her voice dropped when she said "careful," and how it didn't sound like advice. It sounded like regret. The rain had started again, same kind as before, thin and steady, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to pour. I was locking up the shop when her text came through. "Do you know how to fix a coffee grinder?" I almost laughed. It was close to 10. "I can take a look." Now, the bookstore's lights were still on when I got there. She dragged one of the tables near the counter, the grinder disassembled into too many parts. A small desk lamp threw a pale circle of light over everything. Her face half in shadow, the rest glowing warm. "I didn't think you'd actually come," she said. "I told you. I'm good with broken things." She gave me a look I couldn't read, then poured 2 mugs of coffee from a French press that sat nearby. "I made this before the grinder died. It's strong." The shop was closed, the world outside gray with rain. We sat across from each other, steam rising between us. Her sleeves were rolled up. I could see the faint veins on her wrists, the small scar near her elbow. Real things. Human things. "Do you ever regret staying?" I asked before I could stop myself. She looked up. "Staying where?" "In this town." A pause. She traced the rim of her cup with one finger. "All the time. But leaving would mean admitting I waited too long." Her voice thinned out near the end, like she'd said more than she meant to. I pretended to focus on the grinder, but my heart was loud in my chest. "You could still go." She smiled, but it wasn't a happy one. "You say that like it's simple." "It could be." Her eyes flicked up at me, something unreadable passing between us. Then her phone buzzed. She didn't look at it at first, but when she did, the small lift in her face vanished. She turned the screen over. "Everything okay?" "It's nothing," she said. Then softer, "It's always nothing." I wanted to ask more, but she leaned closer, watching my hands as I worked on the grinder. Our shoulders almost brushed. The air changed, not thick, not heavy, just aware. "People think fixing things means putting them back how they were," she said quietly. "But sometimes that's not possible." Her breath touched my arm when she spoke. I didn't move. "I think sometimes it's better when they don't go back," I said. She looked at me then, really looked. Long enough that the sound of the rain seemed to fade. I felt that pull, sharp and clean, somewhere deep in my chest. Then the front door rattled. Someone knocking, quick and impatient. She startled back. Through the glass, a man's shape blurred by the rain. She stood, suddenly distant again. "I should get that," she said. I nodded, stepped away from the table, from her. She opened the door just enough to speak to whoever it was. Low voices, short answers. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw her body stiffen, the way her hand gripped the edge of the doorframe. When she came back, her expression had smoothed over. Professional again. "Everything okay?" I asked. She nodded, but didn't meet my eyes. You should go before it gets worse out there. I left the grinder half fixed on the table. She didn't stop me. Outside, the rain had turned heavier, the kind that soaked you fast. I stood under the awning, watching her silhouette through the glass, still, unreadable, one hand pressed to her temple. I almost went back inside. Almost. But I didn't. And that hesitation, the space between almost and never, stayed with me all night. I didn't see her for nearly a week after that night. Every time I passed the bookstore, the lights were dim, the closed sign always half turned in the window, like she couldn't decide which side to face the world. On Friday, she texted, "If you're still up for fixing broken things." It wasn't signed, but it didn't need to be. When I got there, the rain had stopped, but the streets were slick, glowing in the reflections of streetlights. Inside, the shop was quiet, too quiet. No music, no customers. Just her, sitting on the floor beside a stack of boxes. "Coffee delivery," she said, gesturing to the mess. They sent the wrong kind. I crouched beside her, picking up a box. "You could have called the supplier. I didn't want to talk to anyone else tonight." That stopped me. I looked at her, really looked. There were faint circles under her eyes, her hair loosely tied, a small tremor in her voice she probably thought I wouldn't catch. "Rough week?" I asked. She gave a small laugh. "Every week's rough. Some are just quieter about it." We started unpacking the boxes in silence. The air was heavy with the smell of roasted beans and dust. Every movement felt too loud. The sound of cardboard tearing, a deep breath, the scrape of a shoe against the floor. After a while, she said, "You didn't ask who that was the other night. I figured if you wanted me to know, you'd tell me." Her hand stilled. "It was my ex-husband." I nodded. Waited. "He still thinks there's something left to fix," she said. "But he doesn't realize I stopped being reparable a long time ago." The words hung there, fragile, half-whispered. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. She sat back, arms around her knees, eyes on nothing. "You ever feel like you're just stuck in someone else's aftermath?" I wanted to tell her yes, that I knew what it was like to live half inside someone else's memory, waiting for them to notice you existed. But the words wouldn't come out right. "Sometimes," I said finally. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us looked away. It wasn't attraction, not exactly. It was recognition, the quiet kind that cuts deeper than any touch. She reached for a book that had fallen nearby, brushed my hand by accident. It was small, barely a contact, but everything inside me stilled. She noticed, pulled back, too quickly. Then she said it, the words she'd probably been holding back for weeks. "What are we doing?" Her voice cracked on doing. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. I didn't have an answer that didn't sound like a lie. She exhaled, shook her head, and gave a small, broken laugh. "You shouldn't keep coming here." I swallowed hard. "Do you want me to stop?" She looked at me, long, searching, tired. "That's not the same question." Silence again. The kind that pressed down, that filled every inch of air between us. I wanted to reach out, to bridge it somehow, but my hands wouldn't move. Finally, she whispered, more to herself than to me, "I keep wondering if you showed up to fix my car, or me." And that was the first time I realized she was just as lost as I was. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how to walk into that silence again and pretend it was just about books or broken coffee grinders. Then one afternoon, I found a small envelope wedged under the shop door when I locked up the garage. My name written in blue ink. The handwriting neat, deliberate. No return address. No note inside. Just a photo, old, creased at the corners. It was of her, younger, maybe my age then, standing next to a man I didn't recognize, his arm around her shoulder, both of them smiling like the world hadn't yet given them reasons not to. And behind them, the sign, Maple Books, the same store. On the back, in the same blue ink, "Some things don't change, even when they should." I turned the photo over again and again, trying to make sense of it. The man in the picture, he had my build, my posture, even the same habit of shoving one hand in his pocket while the other rested awkwardly at his side. It was eerie, familiar, like looking at a version of myself caught decades earlier. That night, I walked to the bookstore. She was still there, lights low, counting the register. When she saw me, something passed over her face. Not surprise, not fear. More like inevitability. "I didn't mean for you to see that," she said before I could speak. "Then why send it?" She hesitated. "Because you deserve to know." I set the photo on the counter. "Know what?" Her eyes flicked down to it, then back to me. "He was someone I shouldn't have loved as much as I did. He worked here with me." Same laugh. Same questions. Same quiet way of watching everything like it meant more than it did. Her words came slow, careful, like she was afraid of them. "He died," she said finally. "A long time ago. Car accident. I kept this place after he was gone. Thought if I stayed close to it, he wouldn't really leave." She looked at me, really looked. "And then you walked in one night, asking about a dead battery, and for a second I thought maybe, I don't know, maybe the world was playing some cruel trick. Or maybe it was trying to give something back." I didn't move. I couldn't. The hum of the refrigerator filled the air. A car passed outside, its headlights slicing through the blinds and across her face. Her eyes glistened but didn't spill. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. She smiled, faint, pained. "Don't be. You didn't do anything wrong. You just reminded me that grief never really leaves. It just changes its face." She reached out then, not to touch me, but to slide the photo back across the counter. "Keep it," she said. "Maybe it'll mean something different to you." When I left, the photo felt heavier in my pocket than it should have. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if what I wanted from her was love or forgiveness for being someone she could almost mistake for a ghost. It rained again that night, the kind that hums against windows, steady and low, like a thought you can't shake. I sat in the shop long after closing, the photo laid out beside a half-empty cup of coffee. Her face younger, lighter. The man beside her, a shadow I couldn't compete with. Still, I couldn't stop looking. Not because I wanted to replace him, but because I finally understood what she'd been carrying. When I walked to the bookstore, the street was almost empty. Her lights were on, as always. She looked up when the bell chimed, but didn't seem surprised. "You still have the photo?" she asked. I nodded. It didn't feel right throwing it away. She motioned toward the back, where 2 mugs waited on a small table. I made coffee. Old habit. We sat across from each other, the same spot where this had all started. The air was quiet except for the faint crackle of rain on the awning outside. After a while, she said, "You don't have to keep coming here. I know. You're too young to be pulled into someone else's unfinished story." "I think we both are," I said. That made her laugh, soft, tired. The kind that admits more than it says. "I used to think," she said, tracing the rim of her cup, "that love was supposed to fix things. But it doesn't. It just rearranges what's broken." I watched her fingers more, the faint tremor there. "Maybe that's all it ever does," I said. "Make the mess quieter." She looked up, eyes glistening. "You talk like someone twice your age. Maybe I just listened too much." Silence settled again. But this time, it didn't hurt. It felt like rest. Like both of us had run out of pretending there was a way back to before. Her hand was on the table, inches from mine. I didn't reach for it. Not at first. Just watched how her fingers curled slightly, how she didn't move them away. Finally, I let my hand slide closer, slow enough to give her time to pull back. She didn't. Our fingers touched, not a grasp, not a claim. Just a quiet meeting in the middle. Her eyes stayed on our hands. "You know this can't go anywhere," she whispered. "I know. And you're still here." "I am." She exhaled, a small, shaky sound, then leaned forward, not to kiss me, but to rest her forehead against mine. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The world outside blurred into rain and dim light. It wasn't a beginning. It wasn't an ending. It was just the truth finally sitting between us, gentle, heavy, real. When she finally pulled back, she said, almost to herself, "Maybe that's all we ever wanted. Someone who stayed long enough to see us as we are." I nodded, unable to find words that wouldn't break the moment. And as I left, the bell above the door gave its small, tired ring. The same sound as the first night, only softer now. Like it finally understood. It's been almost a year since that night in the bookstore. Sometimes I still pass by when the lights are low, the windows dim, her outline moving between the shelves like she belongs to the quiet more than to people. I don't always go in. Most nights, I just stand across the street for a minute, hands in my pockets, and let the rain or the noise of traffic blur the edges of memory. We never called what we had anything. There was no goodbye, just the kind of ending that happens naturally, when two people realize they've already said everything they can without ruining what was real about it. She still runs the shop. I heard she's teaching a writing class now, something about memory and loss. I think that fits her, helping people find language for what hurts. As for me, I kept fixing cars. Still do. But something in me changed. Maybe it's how I listen now. To people, to silences, to what doesn't get said. Back then, I thought love was supposed to build towards something. A confession, a future, a promise. But she taught me it can exist quietly, without needing to last. That sometimes the most honest kind of love is the kind that doesn't ask for more. It just is. For a while, I remember one night, long after the bookstore closed, the two of us sitting on the floor, surrounded by boxes and half-drunk coffee. She'd said, "People think they fall in love once. But maybe we fall into small loves all the time. Some stay, some don't." I didn't understand it then. I do now. It wasn't about fixing her or being seen. It was about finding something human in the wreckage, the part of yourself that still believes in connection, even when it hurts. Sometimes, when the shop's empty, I catch myself replaying that last moment, her hand over mine, her voice soft and unsure. Not the words, just the weight of them. That's what lingers. If I ever see her again, I think we'll just nod. Maybe smile. The kind of acknowledgement that says, "I remember too." And maybe that's enough. Because love, the real kind, the lived-in kind, doesn't always end with someone staying. Sometimes it ends with someone learning how to. Long pause. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?